I cannot wait to talk with John Vandermosten. He's the Senior Life Sciences and Analyst with Zacks Small Cap Research and Unboxing Biotech. And we always get him on, talk about what's going on in the tech world. And
some cool stuff right now.
Some super cool stuff. John, always great to see you. How you doing?
All right. Talking about the fun stuff I was reading about today.
Well, let's just jump in with the dire wolf.
Yeah.
Because okay,
when you
think about it, we're gonna get Jurassic Park, aren't we?
I know. That's the first thing I was thinking, actually, when I was looking at this.
Explain, for the people at home that don't know, explain what's going on with the dire wolf.
Yeah, so there's this company called Colossal Biosciences, and they're actually here in Dallas, which is pretty interesting. And they have been working on a number of extinct species, trying to bring them back. So what they do, kind of like we saw in Jurassic Park, is they find DNA, and then they extract the useful parts of it, and then fill in the other parts that don't exist with the closest living relative of that animal, and then create that animal. And they did that with the dire wolf. And I think, probably most of us who watched the Game of Thrones,
yes,
remember the presence of those guys on there. So they're actually living in reality now with us. There are 3 of them, I think.
Where are they? They're in Dallas?
The town of Dyer. I have no idea where they are.
Well, they did not disclose where they are, but I think they said that they're somewhere in the northern area. I mean, I think wolves like colder weather, so, but yes, they're somewhere in the United States, I think.
Yeah, they're not
pretty cool. And the other thing is they're actually working on woolly mammoths, and I don't know about T-Rex, but that's what I'm hoping for next.
Well, let's extrapolate it out a little bit. So you take the dire wolf DNA, and I'm sure they take the DNA from its closest wolf cousin or something to fill in the sequence.
Nice.
Okay. As we know what happened in Jurassic Park, they used the frog DNA, and then the dinosaurs, change sex, and as Jeff Goldblum, famously says, nature always finds a way, breaks down the barriers and comes through. Do you look at this, John, and think to yourself, boy, man, they are treading in an area where I don't know if the text and the life sciences can handle what could possibly come out of this?
They need an island or something, orbiting the Earth so that it can't get to us. But it's funny because there's probably a lot of applications outside of bringing back extinct animals where this could work, or be helpful. So I think it's exciting, not just because of what they've done, but some of the other potentials. But if you go on their website, you can see some of the other things they're working on. And again, it's a company called Colossal Biosciences, and they have a few locations throughout the U.S., but I believe their headquarters is here in Dallas.
John Vandermosten, Senior Life Science Analyst, Zacks Small Cap Research and Unboxing Biotech. John, as you look at Colossal, is this helping their bottom line? Is this something that maybe investors are looking at and saying, hey, whoa, maybe throw a couple shillings at it?
Well, I think it's a private company. I wasn't able to find anything public on them. And, they have a pretty impressive board of directors. So, they're probably going to incubate for a while. And when they can get something that can generate some money, they'll probably go public. But the applications, as I said, the applications are pretty broad in what you can do with this. And showing that it works is pretty impressive with, live animals.
Hey, John, I'm going to switch gears totally and completely away from that because that's kind of freaking me out to think about Jurassic Park. But
you're afraid of the T-Rex, I know.
Big time.
Or the Velociraptors. What's the dangerous ones?
Exactly.
I'm having nightmares tonight. So, but let's talk about drug development as it's relating to China, because they have this high volume approach, and what's going on there, and will that surpass where United States is, or has it already?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what they're doing. If you go back, 25 years, they weren't really doing much there. But I think starting in 2016, they had this 5-year plan. Probably everyone knows that China.
Oh, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, and they were going to allocate something like 4% of GDP to developing life sciences or biotech. I'm not sure the exact definition of what they were going to focus on, but they spent a lot of time and money building that up. And now, 8-9 years later, they've made a lot of progress. There are hundreds of small biotech companies in China. They revamped their whole regulatory system, so it's a lot more easy to navigate than it was before. And in some ways, they've almost surpassed what we're doing here in the United States and in Europe. And I think, where they've made the most headway is in being a fast follower. So, you maybe remember the automakers in Japan, back in the 80s, they kind of took what we did here in the United States, we innovated here in the United States, and then over there, they kind of perfected it. So I think that they're trying to do something similar in China with, so what they do is, probably everyone's heard of checkpoint inhibitors like Keytruda. So they'll take one of these PD-1, PD-L1 molecules, and they'll do like 5 or 10 different versions of it, looking for the best one. And then when a big company is looking to have something in that area, there's a lot more to choose from these companies in China. So it's they're making a lot of progress. And with the slowdown in investment here, especially with those NIH cuts that we heard about, it probably requires a deeper look at what we're doing here so that we can keep up.
John, what about the tariffs and how that affects the biosciences, not only in China, but obviously here with Johnson & Johnson, Lilly, companies like that?
Yeah, so one of the things that was the goal of the tariffs was to bring companies back here to the United States, right, for manufacturing. That's going to be a very long-term process, and in the meantime, a lot of the inputs for the pharmaceutical products may see much higher costs. Now, I'm to be honest, I can't keep up with what's going on in the tariffs.
Nobody can.
One day they're up, one day they're down, one day they're on this, one day they're on that. So I'm not really sure where we are right now. But even if you don't tariff the exact pharmaceuticals, there are a lot of inputs and kind of other products that go alongside them that would have those extra costs. So, in the end, it's gonna mean more expensive drugs for people in the U.S.
John Vandermosten, Senior Life Sciences Analyst, Zacks Small Cap Research, and Unboxing Biotech. John, appreciate your time as always.